Hello everyone, this is Joe with endosgame.com on Joe's Tech Corner. How to do the dual power supply wire up. There's actually two different ways of doing this. I'm only going to show you one of them because the other one is retarded. There's two options. The first one allows you to jumper one of the two power supplies, and then you use one of the switches on the back of it to turn it on and off. Now, the problem with this is that if you do that, you have to remember to turn that power supply on first and then press the power button, turn on your motherboard. Essentially, the one that's not connected to the motherboard is the one that has to have that jumper on it. It's kind of dumb if you accidentally switch it off first and you have your hard drive connected to it. That's bad. You know, you usually want to have your video card on that one, and obviously switching it off is going to hurt the video card. Or if you boot up the machine and forget to turn it on and then your video card gives you an error, or even worse, it tries to run off the board. There's a whole list of things that go wrong with it, and that's why I actually do a hard wire setup that makes it so that when you press the power button they both come on. On this one I've actually got, as you can see, two brand new power supplies. And let me get a light here. Tape electrical tape all over this wire. Now the reason that is, as you can see, there are two wires coming off of it. And what you end up doing is actually sticking those two wires into the plug that goes into the motherboard, and those are actually the two wires that give the power supply the signal of, hey, turn on, and then they keep it on. That way both of your power supplies are coming on the exact same time, and you only have to press one freaking button. You can see right there, that green wire, there's two of them. Crappiness. And there's a good chance I am going to screw up my wiring. So basically there's a gray and a green wire. Basically, the green is your ground, gray is the signal wire. There's two ways to do this. You can either, say you're using an old crappy power supply, you can just cut the wires and put them directly into the back side of the plug. All I do is there's so much of a metal connector that comes up, you can actually just take these wires, but all that's been done with these wires is you basically take them from behind, that's what she said, and just stuff them down in from the back side. You just take the wire, strip it, and stuff it in there. When you press the power button and both come on, you've got good connectivity. Wrap it up real good in electrical tape, you should be fine. I had another power supply that was dead. I stole these gray and green wires, stuck them into one plug, stuck them into the other, and now if one of these power supplies should fail, I can send it back to the manufacturer and I won't have cut up wires on it, and when they ask what did you do to our power supply, I'll be like, it came that way. But just use those two wires, stick them in the back side of the plug, one here at this pin that has the green wire, and on the other side there's a gray one you can't see on this one. It's the gray and the green wire. There should only be one gray and one green. That's the easy part. You can cut the wires on the one, stuff them right in there. Or you can get another piece of wire, it doesn't matter what color it is as long as you memorize which one you used. Stuff it in the green, and on the other side, I believe that's where the gray is, stuff it in the gray on the other side. They should both power on together. If they don't power on together, then you probably have a connectivity issue. Power supply mounting. This one is a bit more elaborate. This is actually welded together. Any welder can do this. A lot of people don't have access to a welder, and then a lot of people don't have the confidence to use them, and I am one of them. I just decided that I would not care if it looked like crap, which it does. It looks terrible, but it works. The problem with this makes the case very top heavy. The reason that I did this is because having these things outside the case makes it so that they don't have to deal with the heat of the system, and the system doesn't have to deal with the heat they produce. They're completely independent. That's actually a pretty nice thing, and they're actually building a lot of these so that the power supplies mount in the bottom of the case, pull air directly through the bottom and send it out the reason it's a welded bracket with big screws in it and all that is because these both have to be grounded. You need to have a steel contact. You need to be able to take a multimeter, basically any tester that can find that you actually have a complete circuit, put it to the grill or somewhere where it's not painted, put it to the case, and if it's not a complete circuit, it's dangerous. You need to have your power supplies grounded. Now if you have a larger case, you can actually see, no you can't because it's freaking dark. Over there, that case actually has it sticking out of the front base. It really is just a matter of ingenuity. Now something like that is actually extremely easy. That one there isn't even screwed into place, but the case is so tight around it that it creates a grounding circuit, and it doesn't actually have to be mounted, and it ain't going anywhere. The drawback to that, obviously, is that you have a power cable sticking out the front of your case. Most people just stick it in the bottom of the case. That's where ingenuity comes in. I went through a bunch of different ideas on how to do this before I finally figured it out. One point, before the power supply was on top of the case, I actually had it sticking out the back side of the case. A lot of people ask what are the bonuses, the advantages of having the dual power supplies. Really, all it's doing is taking stress off the other power supply and making sure that your components are getting sufficient power. A lot of times you can end up starving your system. You can get system crashes, restarts, just generic instability. It shouldn't make your computer faster unless you have hardware that can actually detect low amounts of voltage, and it might, I mean, I don't even know if they make stuff that does that. Usually components draw what they want to draw and they will crash the system. Now, if your system is running fine, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have enough power. Power supplies are meant to run at 80%. So that means if you've got a 1,000-watt power supply, you shouldn't be using more than 800 watts. A lot of times power supplies can't actually achieve what they're rated at, and the whole idea behind having two power supplies is one power supply runs your video card, the other power supply runs your motherboard, and then you just kind of evenly distribute parts, and then as long as these power supplies are any bit decent, you should never have power problems as long as you distribute the watt use evenly, and it's a lot cheaper. 1,000-watt power supply, you're talking over $100. I think the cheapest I've ever seen a 1,000 watts, maybe 140 bucks or something. I rarely see them for a very good price. This is a 500. This is a 430. 30 or 40 bucks, and I know this one was $24. It's barely even half of what it would cost to pay for the bigger power supply. They should have a nice long life because they are not trying very hard to do their job. The more stress you put on a device, the more likely it is to fail, the more heat it produces. These things run completely cool. Now keep in mind, you do want to have draw on both power supplies. If you put two power supplies in your computer, do not put everything on one power supply and then just your fans on another. At least I've read that you can blow up a power supply if you do not have enough draw on one. Now enough draw is maybe just a hard drive and CD-ROM. Just basically the way I set this up, if it wasn't for the video card being plugged into the other one, then I would still have it the same way. Hard drives, CD-ROM, fans, everything else in the computer goes to the second one. The only thing I put on the primary is the motherboard. And another thing to keep in mind is fans use very low power. Bigger fans for the more impressive number now, and they're not necessarily any better than the old 80 millimeters. It only uses maybe a watt. These little fans don't blow as much air, pull as much power wattage as this bigger one. You know, some fans are just more efficient. You're talking probably a watt of fan. Closing here, keep in mind, you do want to have strong dedication to ingenuity before you start this, because you're going to have to figure it out as you're on the go. There's very few cases that are designed for dual power supply. Most of them that are extremely expensive. This is basically budget powering your system. It took me a while before I figured out that I was going to be mounting a bracket on top. And you can do something like this bracket with just nuts and bolts and a drill. It's just it'd be a lot harder to figure out than just going at it with a welder. But this was a video answer to somebody who had questions about how to do this. Green wire on this plug, and gray wire on this plug. Make sure they're hooked up to the same place on this one. Do not cross them. And if you've done it right, when you press the power button, both power supplies should come on. And that should have all of you pretty much set. For more articles on electronics, overclocking, cooling, technology information, you can head to endosgame.com, where we have blog set up for video games, computers, consoles. Basically, it's a site for digital entertainment. And you can find stuff like this on there that I put up on a regular basis. That's www.endosgame.com. Thanks for watching. Like the video, even if you thought it sucked.